Hello and welcome to Richard's Home Mechanics, and this is part 3 of the head replacement bearing set or head race set on the little Piaggio 125 Liberty scooter. Now it doesn't really matter whether we're doing a scooter, a motorcycle, whatever. The principles remain the same. That this is how you fit them. Right, so in my previous video you would have noticed in part 2 that we've actually got the forks out, and the forks are actually sitting in the vise for the next stage. Now what we've got to do on the bottom of these forks, there is, I believe they call it a race. It's a little pushed fitting that actually goes on. Let's have a look. There we go. Right on here, this sits on here. Now this goes like so, but it's actually pressed on, and I mean it's properly pressed on. How are we going to get this off? Basically, let's take that off for a second. We can't use a pry bar because it's no way is that going to come out. Now as you can see, this tube is thin there and it goes fatter and fatter and fatter as it goes on. So when they push these on, when they're manufactured, they are pressed on, or whatever the way they do it with a tube, but that is tight. There's no way I'm going to get a pry bar, no matter what size, and try and lever that off. We are not going to get that off normally, because we are possibly, it's going to be rusted on, and also we're going to damage this little metal cup here, which also the bearing needs to sit in. What do we do? Right, one way I found of doing this is to use one of these. Now this fitting here is really solid steel, and that's a bugger to cut into. But if you get one of these, it doesn't have to be an air compressor, but you need a mini disc, cutting disc. And what we're going to do, I'm going to try and cut a slit in that, and if we can get it, don't have to cut through because we don't want to damage this column here, this piece here. If I can just halfway through, we might be able to give it a crack. Well, I'm hoping we can give it a crack with a cold chisel and a club hammer, and we can break this loose, and then we can slide that other fitting on. Jobs are good. And so let's have a go. Let's get our safety gear first. Mustn't forget, put my goggles on, and most importantly, earmuffs. Right, let's have a go. We need to put a tiny little slit in here so we can crack it off and actually get this race off, because they are really tight. Let's give it a go, shall we? Don't want to cut too much, so we're making sure that's fine. Now, this is quite sharp. Hopefully we've done enough. Right, we're going to use a cold chisel now, so I'm going to keep these safety goggles on because, you know, you've only got one set of eyes, you want to protect them. Now what we need to do, we need to give this a crack, and hopefully we're about to get it off with a little pry bar. These are going to be tight, I know. Right, let's have a look. Don't have to whack it too hard. I think we've got a crack in there. Let's see if we can pry this off. Nice and steady without damaging this cup. Here we go. That's starting to move. Did you see that? I have bent this little cup down there, but we can just tap that back at a later date. But the main thing is we're working our way around. Look, by what I've done, by cutting the slot in it, I haven't gone right through, but by cutting the slot in the actual ring here, it's really reduced the tightness, the pressure. You know, so you've cut there, it's allowed it to expand open enough for me to tip it up and get it off. So what we're going to do, we're going to work our way around it. She's going, see that? She's coming. Here we go. Oh, beautiful. That came off better than what I thought it did. Now if you see that, all I've done was I cut a little slot in it, and that was enough to release it. So what I'm going to do next is I will tap this cup back up in a minute. I'll rub this down, get it all smooth, and then we'll be ready to drop the new race in. So that's what I'm going to do next. So let's move on to that stage, shall we? Okay, what we're going to do next, we've got the old head race off, and what we're going to do, where this little cup is, where the head race bangs onto, taps onto, I'm going to give it a quick clean. So we don't want any surface around there, because if there's a little bit of surface around, it might restrict the fitting of the new race. So let's give it a quick clean. Just using a very quite a delicate wire brush. It's not going to hurt it. Spin around. Right, now that's ready to take the new race. Right, it's so tempting to just put that race on there, get the old cold chisel and give it a whack. Now we don't want to do that because we don't want to damage this, because the bearing has to sit on top of it like so. So we don't want no dents, and if you dent that, it's just going to grind like hell. So what we're going to do is we'll make sure that's clean. We're going to get the new race, we're going to slide it on. And the way I get these new races on is I do this. I put a little rag round, like that, to protect it. I then get a pole. In this particular circumstances, I've got a scaffold pole. And by putting the rag round it, it's going to protect it. And what we're going to do, I'm going to put the pole over the top, like so. And then we're going to go, I'm going to get on my little step ladder, and I'm going to tap it on, and hopefully that will go on. Now what we're listening for is the different tone. When we get a deep tone, that means that's home. So let's have a look. Right, I think we're there. Let's have a look at that. Take the pole off. I find this the best way to do it, and it doesn't damage the actual race itself. Cloth off. Here we go. That's perfect. Now that race is now ready. Now what we're going to do next is, I think we will take on the actual headstock, on the actual frame of the bike, we've got some other what we've got on there, some races and some shells. So what we're going to do, we're going to go back to the scooter, and then we're going to knock them out, and then hopefully once we've knocked them out and replaced them, we can then offer the forks up with the bearings, nip it up and put these forks back in this scooter.